First, I want to go over what is a motivated seller because that's the thing. You have to identify while you're talking with people if they're even motivated because that lets you know, is this really a potential lead or potential prospect? Because if they're not motivated, um, I don't count it as a lead. I more count it as an introduction, and then maybe I'll follow up with them to see if they turn into a motivated lead. So somebody that's motivated is compelled by some type of circumstance or emotion to sell the house, and they need to be compelled. Like, this is not like a normal circumstance. Like, it's not someone that's just saying, oh, I have a new job and I'm thinking of selling my house. That's not really motivated, because you're looking for someone that is motivated to sell the house for less than the market value. So it has to be, something has to be going on in their life, divorce, just something where they really don't care about the house anymore, or something is just more important than the house that makes them motivated. So um, that's the main thing that you can, when people call in, or if you're talking to someone, one of the first questions is to ask them why they're even looking to sell, because that will let you know if this is even somebody motivated. Because I get a lot of calls to this day, and you're going to get a lot of calls where people are just calling you because they're just curious about what you're going to say or how much you're going to offer. They're not actually motivated to sell the house. It's just, oh, I got this postcard. Oh, I saw your sign. I'm just calling to see what would you offer me. But they're not motivated to actually sign anything and actually close a deal. And also and then in that respect, our position is listening to whatever problem that they're going through, and then we're looking for ideas, to help them solve that solution. Like, I just had a conversation yesterday with a lady. She has an auction on her house, and she really wants to keep the house. And so she was just, like, really all over the place when I met with her. And I'm trying to identify ways to help her. Like, she couldn't afford the mortgage, so she started to rent out rooms in her house. And so as I'm listening to all the problems that she's having, I'm trying to think of, okay, what type of solution would even work for her to get her in a better place? Like, can she afford this house? Like, if things were different, if she was able to get rid of some debt, you know, where would she go if she sold? Does the house even have equity? So those are the things that we're thinking of, is what solution could I provide that would even help you out of this situation? Can I help you stop the foreclosure auction? Like, so I'm trying to get all that type of information from her to see how motivated she is. So in her situation, she has a lot going on, but she still hasn't reached the stage where she's like, I need to sell, which is, these type of people, sometimes you just cannot help, because no matter how bad their situation gets, they're still trying to hold on to the house, even though everything that is going on is showing them they cannot afford the house. Some people just literally until the day before the auction will just still keep believing that something is going to happen and the house will be saved from the foreclosure auction. So a lot of times, so that's what I mean, is you're just listening to see how motivated they are, to see if this is even someone that at this time you can count them as a lead. Because if they're not motivated, like right now, I'm just following up with her, but I wouldn't really consider her a prospect for a lead yet that I can convert, because she's still trying to find and explore options that she could keep the house. And when I try to talk to her about selling the house, it's like she gets angry, because she's like, no, 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 I want to keep the house. So that's what I'm explaining to you, is that as you're talking to people, you're always trying to see, if they're even motivated to sell. How do you identify a motivated seller, and what would motivate a person to sell their house at below market value? Because that's the thing too. Like I said, you're going to get a lot of calls, but a lot of people are going to want, full market price, or whatever Zillow has that their house should be. They're going to want that price. They're not going to be in a situation where they're going to call you and say, I'm willing to sell for 75% of the house's value or something like that. And we're always looking, when you're looking to wholesale, you're looking for people that are willing to sell the house for less than what the house is worth, because that's the only way that it will successfully work as a wholesale deal. So the two different things are whatever circumstances are going on in their life, and number two is emotion. So circumstances. So the seller that's motivated by the circumstances, they need to sell the house because one could be the property's condition. You get to the house just needs a ton of work, and they don't have money to fix it. Or if it's something like, fire damage, mold, those types of things where it's just too much and people get overwhelmed trying to figure out how to fix that type of circumstance. Because if it's fire damage and it's not repairable, and they're responsible to repair it, most likely they didn't have insurance or something like that. So they're at the point where I just need to get out of this because now I'm in a mess. The other thing is circumstance that you can look for is finances. If they can't afford the repairs, sometimes people have moved out of the house and they're like, oh, I need to get rid of this other house because now I have two mortgages. So you'll get that. So that's a financial circumstance that's going on that's compelling them to sell. The other thing is for circumstance is time frame, or there's some type of external pressure. So pre-foreclosure falls into this category because, for instance, this lady that I just spoke with, her auction is June 19th. So she's pressed for time. So even though at this point she's still trying to explore options to keep the house, the reason I'm keeping in touch with her is because she only has a small window to decide if she's going to keep the house or sell. So she either needs to bring this mortgage current somehow, or she needs to sell the house to avoid pre-foreclosure. But she only has basically a month to do that. So there is some type of time frame pressure. So you're looking for things like that. Like this person calls in, is there something that's compelling them that, hey, you need to make a decision and you need to make a decision quickly? The other thing is convenience. This is where absentee landlords fall in. And also people, sometimes they inherit a property. I get these where people inherit a property and, they inherit a property here in Virginia, but they live in Canada. They inherit a property here, and it's just really more of a pain than really something good, because sometimes the property that people inherit has been empty for a while. So they're like, okay, for it to be worth something, I have to put money into it, fix it up, and then sell it. And some people are not willing to do that when they inherit a property because, they weren't planning on that. So they're kind of like that, they're like, it's just not convenient for me to come down and, leave where I live and my job for a couple of weeks to come down and take care of that. So like a convenience thing. So absentee landlords, sometimes they're just selling because they just don't want to be bothered anymore. They're like so far away and people are calling them about repairs or whatever. They just, I have one lady, she lives in, I'm doing a short sale for her. She lives in Arizona. So she's like really, really, really far away. She's like a plane ride away. So it's like, it's just a convenience thing at this point. She's just like, I don't want to be bothered. Just sell it and, everybody just leave me alone type of thing. The other thing is emotion. If the owner no longer like loves the house or is like emotionally detached from the house. And that's what I'm saying with this lady. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, so I'm better at analyzing people, and she's still in a phase of she's so emotionally attached to the house. So that's why sometimes when people are still like emotionally attached, even though everything you're telling them, because we don't have any emotion to the house. Every solution we come up with is just based on facts and trying to help them to get to a better place. So when somebody's emotionally attached to the house, like the logic is just not there. So everything that we're trying to explain to them, it's like it's just not clicking because you're still emotionally attached and they're still screaming, I don't want to sell, I don't want to sell, I want to keep the house, even though, I've had people yelling at me I don't want to sell, and they don't even have a job at the time. And I'm like, you're gonna lose the house. Like, you're not working unless you get a job next week. Like, how, even though you're yelling and screaming you want to keep the house, you can't afford the house. And so sometimes it takes people a while to get to that point where they're like, you know what, this isn't working. They just, they get tired, and they're just like, I'm just done. So a lot of times when people are emotionally detached from the house, like divorce cases are pretty good at this, because usually people, when they get a divorce, they may hate each other. They don't want any memories. They bought the house together, and they're just like, I don't care what happens to that house, because they're moving on. So sometimes those are the people also that will have maybe two mortgages, because they're just like, I'm leaving. I left already, and we just need to get rid of the other house. I'm not living there anymore. I don't care what it sells for. I just don't want my name attached to it anymore. So those people are good, because you can hear through their story that they're not attached to the house. So you're always looking from the language that people use. If we're looking for people that are emotionally detached. The other thing is embarrassment. So sometimes, people are just not willing to list their house the traditional way and show the property, or have people know that they're going through financial hardship. Sometimes the interior of the house is not really up to the standards of their neighbors. Maybe they're a hoarder, and they're like embarrassed. So they don't really, a traditional sale, the realtor comes and we take pictures of every room. It's on Zillow, it's blasted all over the internet. Some people don't want that, because they're like, they internally know that they're embarrassed about how their house looks. The other one is emotional distress. That's what I was saying, like divorces and things like that. Is, they just really don't care, or some type of estate property. And of course, the other one is bad rentals, like if they have vacancies, bad tenants, poor cash flow. The emotion of that, we call them like tired landlords. You just get tired of, you can't keep tenants. Maybe your tenants keep leaving, or you just keep getting bad tenants. You just get tired after a while, and you'll hear that in people's voice and what they're talking about. They may be saying, hey, my tenant is always late. They've always been late, things like that. Oh, my tenant's always complaining. Oh, my tenant's, always calling me. So you want to listen for those like trigger words of what they're complaining about, because that will tell you if it's like a bad rental. A lot of times that's what motivates them. So the seller is motivated by the circumstance, and they need the house sold, and the seller is also motivated by emotion. So they want the house, just out of their life, is basically the overall of what we're looking for when we talk to people.